Time to go over the last 4 episodes of the No Game No Life anime that cover Volume 3 of the light novel. Now, unlike the first 8 episodes of the anime that cover Volumes 1 and 2, these 4 episodes don't exactly do the light novel justice. This light novel's a little bit longer than the previous ones, and because of that, more things had to be cut. And given the nature of the anime versus written literature, I understand why things had to be streamlined in the way that they are, but the extra context that is gained from the light novel is pretty significant in a number of cases. There were a couple conversations between characters that were cut, as well as a few phrases that were said that give extra context, as well as extra depth and interactions within the games themselves, and even an entire game that was cut from the anime. It was a small game, mind you, but a very important one in my opinion. And, as the title of this video says, the anime even lied to its viewers with the cliffhanger ending. In Season 2 of No Game No Life, if we eventually get one, it will not directly go into the game with the old Deuce. In fact, I think the ending of the anime kind of does a disservice to everything that came before it in a couple of different ways, but I'll touch on that in a bit. Instead, let's start off with Episode 9 that covers the game of Existence Othello. Now, the games themselves of Existence Othello, Lover Love 2, and the extra game that was cut I'm going to cover in their own videos. But there are some interesting things that were changed from the light novel to the anime in regards to how Shiro is handling herself while Sora is playing this game, or while the game is still going on. In the anime, we see Shiro wake up alone. She's distraught without her brother, and she's panicking. Same thing happens in the light novel. However, in the anime, Shiro is still able to walk around, still able to interact with Steph and Jabril, and she even runs to Sora and Shiro's room, the room that they have in the basement in the anime. But that always kind of felt off to me, even while watching the anime, because it was established in Episode 2 that when Sora and Shiro are apart, neither of them can really function as human beings. And yet, Shiro, given that Sora disappears, she thinks Sora has abandoned her, she's still able to kind of function? Whereas in the light novel, that doesn't happen. Shiro never leaves the royal bedchamber. When she wakes up and Sora's not there, she immediately is pushed to, like, the brink of her mentality, and Jabril realizes this. She locks herself in the royal bedchamber, Steph and Jabril are outside the door and trying to communicate with her, not getting any response. And then when Steph and Jabril are discussing the different possibilities, that Shiro may have lost a game, that her memories were altered, that she was given the memories of this brother in an effort to disrupt her and make her lose to the Eastern Union. At this point, Shiro slides a tablet under the door to communicate with Jabril. Shiro can't even bring herself to speak at this point, so she's typing the messages on the tablet, asking questions to Jabril to try to get clarification, to try to understand what it is that Jabril and Steph know, how they have no memories of Sora, and things of that nature. Jabril realizes how dire of a state that Shiro is in, that she can't take this much longer and won't last in this state. And that's when Jabril proposes a game to seal Shiro's memories. And the game that they play is not chess like it was in the anime. It is a virtual shogi where Shiro wins absolutely. It is stated in the light novel that the move that Shiro makes to win is an absolute victory. Whereas in the anime, if we look at the image of the final position on the chessboard, Shiro actually should have lost this game. If it was by standard rules, by the move that Shiro made, moving her white knight, well, it puts her own king in checkmate. So although Jabril's king is in checkmate by Shiro's move, Jabril is the player who would have the next move, and on that move she would be able to take Shiro's king. So under standard rules, Shiro would have lost here. So I might actually make a separate video on this, a kind of what-if scenario if Shiro did actually lose in this situation, and analyzing this game in further. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys see how Shiro would have lost this chess match, or if you would like me to explain further in a separate video. But after that point, things progress in the light novel the same as they do in the anime. Shiro realizes that her brother is real, declaring that blank does not lose, and then she starts regaining some of her awareness, that Sora wouldn't leave her alone, that the game is still going on, and that is when they eventually discover that the game is being played in that room. Shiro woke up there, and her brother must be there as well. And the way that Shiro actually discerns which side of the board that Sora would play on is because the different Othello pieces, one of them have the numbers 1, 2, 3 written in the Manatee language, and the others have 1, 2, 3 written in the Elven language. So that's how she's able to discern who ends up going first, or what side of the board that Sora would be playing on, and then she kind of reads the game from there. She still can't actually see the Othello board, but given that Othello is much simpler than chess, but still a game with perfect information, which is Shiro's expertise, then she's able to read how the game would play. And I'll go over Existence Othello in its own video. And then after the game finishes up, Sora and Shiro are declared the winner, and the demands that Sora makes of Kurumi and Phil is that Kurumi keeps a copy of Sora's memories, so that now she will completely trust him, know that he's not, well, I was going to say not a bad person, but he's kind of a bit of a scumbag, but still, his intentions are pure when it comes to wanting to win the game, and that no one will die, he's not going to betray humanity, things like that. And then the second one is reserving the right to alter Phil's memories a single time in the future, and that's to start plotting against Elven Guard. But in the conversation that happens afterwards, when everyone is kind of getting to know each other with Kurumi, Phil, Sora, Shiro, Jabril, and Steph, there are a couple things that are said that are, in my opinion, very significant and were cut from the anime. Kurumi, after getting Sora's memories and the influx of information that she has, she turns to Sora and says, "How the heck, after going through all of that, can you keep your head on straight?" And everyone kind of looks at Sora, and Sora's response to this is, "Do I look like I have my head on straight?" But one thing that was mentioned in the light novel is that Kurumi may have been referring to something that even Shiro doesn't know, implying that Sora has a pretty dark past. And this is further reinforced when it's revealed that Kurumi is actually Phil's slave. She refers to her slavery as, "It's no great matter. Everyone has a trial or two that they go through." And she glances at Sora when she says this, implying that something in Sora's past made Kurumi's slavery no great matter, which is very significant to Sora's character, implying that he went through hell before he met Shiro. Which, if we consider how a person develops the ability to perfectly read people and how he gives the perfect response, what would condition a 10-year-old child or a child younger than 10 years old to learn those type of skills? The past that Sora has is not a pleasant one, and No Game No Life is quite possibly a little bit darker than it might seem on the surface. After this point, they all decide to have the naked communication, as Sora calls it, and Phil actually supports this. In the anime and in the light novel, it's the exact same thing. But after that point, there is an extra conversation between Sora and Phil in the light novel that shows just how dangerous Phil is. Sora asks Phil why she went along with his shenanigans, why she agreed to this entire scenario, and Phil reveals, well, it's because when people don't have their clothes on, I can get a better read on their spirits, to know if someone would cut me in my sleep. In other words, to know if someone would actually betray her. She can read people's intentions through the spirits that are in their bodies. And she goes further to tell Sora directly that now that Kurumi has a copy of your memories, she now trusts you unconditionally. But make no mistake, just because she trusts you, it does not mean that I do. And through this overall conversation, Sora is able to gather that Phil is able to read him. And he's concerned enough by this that after this conversation that they have, he calls Jabril over and asks her, did Phil use any magic? And Jabril detected nothing, which hurts Sora's confidence a little. The fact that Phil can read so far ahead. And this actually is something that Shiro mentions as well. That's something that Shiro can't even do. She is not at the level where she can read her brother's moves that far ahead as much as Phil has, just showing how dangerous Phil and Kurumi are. This is also further expanded upon in the epilogue of the light novel, where we see a little bit of interaction between Kurumi and Phil after Phil has given her report to Elvengard, the false report on the War Beasts game, where Phil realizes that she just gave that false report to the Elven Council after Kurumi snaps her out of it and her memories return to normal. That was part of the conditions built into the covenants with that demand that Sora made to alter Feel's memories. There was a trigger to snap her out of it, to erase those false memories, and she realizes what exactly had happened. And at this point, Kurumi asks Feel if she was able to read this far ahead, if she knew that Sora was going to use her to lie to Elvengard. And Feel admits that she wasn't able to read that far. She was able to read up to the point of using Elvengard to corner the Warbeasts, but she wasn't able to read the fact that Sora would use Feel to then get an extra leg up on Elvengard itself. Which does show that Sora is overestimating Feel a little bit, but also goes to show that Feel, in her confidence and Sora's inability to read Feel completely, is kind of making Sora overestimate Feel. Feel and Kurumi are actually serious competition for Sora and Shiro. Because at this point, Kurumi makes that declaration, okay, now that I have Sora's memories, I see his plan on how to beat the game of the world. And she seems to have changed. Feel notices this, that Kurumi is a lot more confident, that she seems a lot more cunning, and she has her own goals. She is going to forge her own path. Kurumi does not have Shiro like Sora does, but instead she has Feel. They will forge their own path, find their own way, and make their own wings. Kurumi is determined to help Sora with his own plan, but also forge her own path as well, which we'll see how that turns out later in the light novel and the different interactions that come of that. But now getting back to the course of the anime, the next thing that happens after that bath scene is the game with the Warbeast, Love or Loved To. And for the most part, things play out the exact same. A few minor changes here and there, some things that do kind of make it seem a little bit better in the light novel, but those I'll cover in their own video. And afterwards, Sora and Shiro are able to defeat the Warbeast and are able to claim all of the continental land and property of the Eastern Federation. At this point, Izuna is distraught. She can't forgive herself for smiling during the game and realizes how many people are going to suffer because of her actions. And in the anime, all it takes is a few words from Sora and Shiro to convince her that that's not the case, that things are going to be alright. And after reading the light novel, in the anime it does seem like Izuna is convinced of Sora and Shiro's intentions far too easily. She understands a little bit too quickly. Sure, Warbeast have their sixth sense, they're able to read whether a person's lying or not, but still, like, Izuna is a young child and she has a lot riding on her shoulders and thinks that a lot of people are going to suffer because of her. And in the light novel, at this point, Sora challenges Izuna to a game, a 1v1 quick draw contest between the two of them. This is something I'll cover in its own video. Of course, Sora does end up winning, and that is when he's able to talk with Izuna, and Izuna becomes their friend, is on their side, and believes in Sora's plan of how he's going to beat the game, understands that no one will suffer, etc. After that point, they all head to the bath once again, and this is where they encounter the Shrine Maiden. She's somehow also there in the bath in the anime. That's not the case in the light novel. Instead, the Eastern Federation, or rather the Shrine Maiden, sends a message to Elkia as fast as she possibly can, and because of that, Sora realizes the urgency of it, that she's in a dire situation, because Sora orchestrated it that way, and it's Jabril that teleports all of them, Sora, Shiro, Steph, as well as Izuna and Ino, to the Eastern Federation. And when she does this, she's actually breaking space. That's how Flugels teleport. They kind of break the space and transport themselves along with, like, the air around them, and it creates a very unpleasant sound to those with more sensitive hearing. So Ino and Izuna really are not happy about the overall situation in the way that they teleported. But they teleport to meet the Shrine Maiden. The Shrine Maiden is now cornered, given that Elvengard now knows the nature of their game, and Avontheim has shown up. And that is what forces the Shrine Maiden into that game with Sora, where they eventually end up tying, and the Eastern Federation becomes the Elkia Federation, the rights of the War Beasts are guaranteed, and things work out quite well for all of them. And they are still set up to take on Elvengard when Elvengard comes to challenge War Beast, because they have inaccurate information. And all of that pretty much happens the exact same way in the light novel. But at the end of the anime, Sora asks the Shrine Maiden, "Oh, well, since you're a Shrine Maiden, you have one, don't you?" And that's when the Shrine Maiden calls upon Exceed Rank 1, the Old Deuce. This does happen in the light novel, but not at the end of Volume 3. It happens at the end of Volume 6. There's a lot that happens before the game with the Old Deuce. Instead, in the light novel, the actual ending is Sora and Shiro kind of go gallivanting around the Eastern Federation. Sora enjoys his Animal Girl paradise, the goal that he had in mind, and part of the reason he was challenging the Eastern Federation, not only to beat the game, but to get his paradise. And with Izuna along, claiming that Sora and Shiro are really good at petting, he's able to experience his Animal Girl paradise. And that's where the volume ends off, with the Shrine Maiden telling Ino and Izuna to go with them, and not to make them their enemies, because the Shrine Maiden understands how terrifying of a force that Sora and Shiro are. And after this point is when Ino has that conversation with Sora about checkmate and what that declaration means. So things kind of happen a little bit out of order, but the way that the anime ended, with that challenge against the Old Deuce, it's a great cliffhanger ending, don't get me wrong, but they could have gone a different way about it. They could have actually had someone or something else appear to lead into the events of Volume 4 of the light novel, which we will get into in separate videos soon enough, but the game against the Old Deuce, having Sora and Shiro challenge the Old Deuce right at the end of Volume 1 is counter to everything that has been set up thus far in the anime. Sora needs to gather more information and more pieces on the board before he is actually ready to play against the Old Deuce. There is a lot more that needs to be obtained by Sora for him to be in a position where challenging the Old Deuce is even possible. The fact that he would go blindly into that game at the end of the anime isn't really Sora's way of doing things. He would want to do more research, learn more about the Old Deuce, and try to figure out a way to orchestrate the game so when it began, it would already be in his favor, which he does through a number of different ways that, again, we'll touch on in the future. So let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the differences between Volume 3 of the light novel and episodes 9 to 12 of the anime. For me, the anime kind of does fall short of the light novel, but don't get me wrong, the anime is still one of my all-time favorites. I love the anime, and I understand why a lot of the changes were made, to make it easier to visualize, since it is a visual medium, whereas the light novel you can give extra depth by explaining people's thought processes and what is going through their head at given moments. Existence Othello is the perfect example of that, because quite a few things were actually changed from the anime to the light novel, and just the context that's given makes Existence Othello, or rather gives it, a much different feel in the light novel compared to the anime, and that's why it is one of my favorite games of all time in all of No Game No Life. Probably my favorite game from the first 3 volumes of the light novel. But with the more noticeable changes, like the hints at Sora's dark past and the conversations that happened between Feel and Sora, that Feel is a little bit of a dangerous opponent, and Sora realizes that, as well as Kurumi and Feel being set up to be competitors for Sora and Shiro in the future, as well as having an entire game, albeit a short one, completely cut from the anime, and the ending entirely changed as well. The ending change is the one that I kind of feel shouldn't have been made. They could have put in something else to lead into the events of what will be Season 2 of No Game No Life, which is going to be Volumes 4 and 5 of the light novel, most likely. So that's the only real gripe that I have about the anime, but I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Flugel. And if you want to see some games played live, make sure to check out my Twitch channel as well. I stream every Tuesday and Saturday. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Ashente.